officers, and thank you very much for attending this evening. Can I just remind you all that we're not due to have a fire drill this evening, so if the fire alarm goes off, can I ask you to use one of the fire exits there or there and assemble outside Waitrose, which is our usual fire assembly point. Thank you. Apologies if I'm slightly hoarse this evening. If my voice goes completely, then my Deputy Councillor Martin is ready to take over. So, without further ado, can I confirm as item 1 of the agenda the minutes of the meeting held on the 27th of September?
Great.
Thank you. I will sign those at the end of this meeting. Item 2, apologies for absence. Mrs McQuillan? Mr Taylor?
None received, Leader.
Thank you. Any declarations of interest?
None received in advance, Leader.
Colleagues, any declarations of interest? Any questions from members of the public?
None received.
Item 5, the forward programme, pages 9 to 12. Colleagues, you have the forward programme. You've had a chance to review that. Any comments on your portfolios or anything on that forward programme? Can I take it that that is agreed?
Agreed.
Moving to item 6, Councillor Hall, we have the budget management and mid-year review, pages 13 to 26. Would you like to introduce that? Thank you.
Thank you, Leader. Not much from me tonight on this particular item, members. Item 1 is an 11k for waste collection over New Year. Item 2 is 30k to defend appeals against council planning decisions. Item 3 is to maintain the hardship fund, which is the council tax support scheme. And item 4 is a small adjustment to the credit limits of investment from 7.5 million to 10 million. The remaining items 5 through to 17 are reschedules or vehement's, so no net effect, broadly in line with no corrective action. Thank you, Leader.
Thank you, Councillor Hall. Any other comments from councillors? No? Well, it's certainly a very comprehensive report, which I trust you've all read and duly noted. In that case, we will take the recommendations as a block. So, colleagues, we have in total 17 recommendations to that item. Are those agreed?
Agreed.
Thank you. Let's move to item 7, Councillor Hall, the future provision of the payroll service. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Leader. The report seeks approval to change our payroll provider. Essentially, the old one has gone out of business, and the new provider will save us about £11,000. I've spoken with the officers and said that what is of primary importance on this is the implementation, because obviously nobody likes it if payroll stops doing what it's supposed to do. So having taken that on board, the 2 recommendations are to transfer the service to Midland HR and the hosting of the iTrent system to be transferred from Tandridge to Midland HR. Thank you, Leader.
Thank you, Councillor Hall. Excuse me. Any other comments? No? In that case, we have 2 recommendations under that item.
Agreed.
Are they agreed? Thank you. Right. Moving to item 8. Mrs McQuillan.
Sorry, Leader, there's a third recommendation that we just need to add to that report, which is that the authority enters into a contract with Midland HR to provide the payroll function at Waverley.
Right. Shall we take a step back then? So we've got 3 under agenda item 7. Yeah. We've now got 3 recommendations. So the 2 that are on page 4 already, and then a third one, which is that the authority enters into a contract with Midland HR to provide the payroll function at Waverley Borough Council. I think it's basically a tidying up stroke administrative function. Mrs. King.
Sorry, Leader, yes, it is straightforward. The only thing I was a bit concerned is what the timescale is, please. I couldn't find any mention of that.
Sorry, for what? For that particular part of the item? Do you want to?
Leader, we should be live in the April pay with Midland HR.
Any other questions? Right, okay. In that case, let's go back to the recommendations. As I say, there are 3 recommendations, which includes the additional one which I've just read. Are those agreed, colleagues?
Agreed.
I move to item 8, which is the strategic review. And this report basically sort of seeks to commission and fund a strategic review of the organisation. And the aim really is to ensure that we make sure that by using a third party, we can really look very effectively and transparently at making sure that we're working effectively as an organisation at all levels, and ensuring we're delivering high quality services for our residents, which ultimately is what we want. I understand we have a speaker on that, Councillor Gray. Thank you.
Thank you, Leader. I commend the Executive and the Head of Paid Services for taking this step. The funds only allow for a limited review, but within a reasonable timescale. But I would ask that the Executive plan to follow this review up and to fund any further work identified in the review. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Gray. Yes, to your point, we've made sure that working with the Head of Paid Service, that the initial review is quite specific, and there's also a very, what some might call, challenging timescale for the delivery of that review, and that too is very important. We need that before the year end, so that we can start to really look at how we move forward as a council and an administration on working more effectively. And I think at the moment we don't know what's going to come out of the review. We've probably all got various ideas, but it's going to be a matter of using the information that comes from the review, and if necessary, and we do need to sort of then look at certain areas in more detail, or we need to go further, then we will do so, absolutely. Colleagues, any other comments? No? Okay. In that case, are we all in agreement with the recommendation for that item? It's one recommendation at the bottom of page 4. Thank you. Moving to item 9, something that always causes a lot of comment, and I'm sure it will tonight as well. So, fixed penalty notice fine levels for fly tipping. Councillor Edwards, would you like to take that item?
Thank you, Leader. Yeah. Waverley Borough Council is committed to tackling the scourge of fly tipping. It blights our community and harms the environment, and in particular the wonderful countryside in Waverley that we all enjoy. We have committed resources to strengthen our enforcement activity this year with a new environmental enforcement officer, and we are working in partnership with other Surrey local authorities to tackle this problem. Surrey Police and the Police and Crime Commissioner's Office to coordinate action against offenders as we develop our joint enforcement initiative. The new powers under these regulations will strengthen our ability to penalise those who fail to accept their responsibilities for the waste they produce. And fly tip waste, regardless of the impact on communities or the local environment, In line with our partners, we wish to take a robust approach and set the fines at a level to make it clear to offenders how seriously we view the offence and to ensure it acts as a serious deterrent. We are therefore recommending the level be set at the maximum of £400 with a discount to £300 for early payment. In addition to what I've just said, the current level of fly tipping, regardless of what Surrey County Council tell our members, is on the increase in Waverley. Okay, I've just had the figures for September, and compared to September last year, the number of fly tips has doubled. Okay, there are some recommendations, and we are undertaking with Surrey Waste Partnership a joint fly tipping campaign to encourage people to report fly tipping and report those that are doing it. This includes an online reporting facility which can be found at the Surrey Waste Partnership website. There will also be radio and television advertising in the Surrey area to try and address this increasingly difficult problem. So I recommend this recommendation to the Council. Thank you.
Councillor Edwards, thank you. I have Councillor Denis and then Councillor Martin.
Thank you. As my colleague has said, this is the ideal platform for a joint enforcement team, the JET team, to operate, because that's about intelligence and enforcement. I agree locally. I've noticed on the A281 the increase in fly tipping and the number of complaints by residents. So that's happened. And I just want us to be absolutely sure that we are robust in any enforcement if payment isn't received, that we take it to the next stage. So it's good to have fines and a policy, but we must take it further forward if people don't pay those fines. Thank you.
Councillor Denis, thank you. Councillor Martin.
Thank you. I'm fully supportive of these recommendations. I think the key on the fine levels is that we are taking the maximum that we are able to, and I suspect if the maximum were higher than £400, then our fine levels would be that maximum. This is a scourge on the area, and it does blight the landscape. So I think anything we can do to minimise that is a good thing. Thank you.
Thank you. I think it's fair to say that a lot of us see this as a growing and an unnecessary scourge on our beautiful borough, and quite frankly, it's completely unacceptable. And as Councillor Edwards and Councillor Denis have said, we've got to do all we can to send a very clear message out there that we will not tolerate it, it will not be tolerated, and we will follow up. There will be these fines will be implemented, and furthermore, if prosecutions do need to happen, then we will prosecute as well, because we cannot let this continue. And we've set £400 because at the moment we're limited. That's as much as we can set. And I also see that we are also sort of almost duty bound to offer some form of discount if it's paid within a certain period of time. And if that's the case, then we have to honour that and go that route. Then so be it. But quite frankly, I think for many residents in Waverley, they would like to see people behaving as everyone should, respecting the borough, respecting one another, and using the various spring sites or using the various community recycling centres around as needed. So, as I say, let's keep this under review. Councillor Edwards, unfortunately, it is a growing issue, and thanks for your hard work and that of the officers in bringing this before us this evening. Colleagues, there's one recommendation. Is that agreed? Agreed. Right, we move on to the conservation area appraisals. So we have the Ewhurst conservation area appraisal this evening. Councillor Adams.
Thank you, Leader. First, I'd like to apologise for the number of mistakes that there are in the text in both this item and the following item. I'll sort these out with the officers after the event and make sure that the minutes are correctly furnished. Ewhurst Conservation Area. In fact, there were 8 responses to the original appraisal and no amendments made to the recommendations then on that case. So these recommendations here are exactly the same as the recommendations that were in the original appraisal, and in respect of item 10 I recommend those, Leader.
Thank you, Councillor Adams. Any other comments? No. In that case, colleagues, are we agreed on the recommendation for that item 10?
Agreed.
Thank you. Moving to item 11, which is the Ewhurst Green Conservation Area appraisal. Councillor Adams.
Thank you, Leader. This appraisal is very close, obviously, to Ewhurst Village. There were recommendations for 2 small extensions and 2 removals. There were 14 responses to the consultation, and one particular removal was the Shanrosa Field, proposed in the appraisal. Now, on consideration, that's not been removed. That has not been removed from the CA and so remains in. Otherwise, as I say, the recommendations are on top of page 6.
Thank you. Any comments, Councillor Dinas?
Thank you, Leader. Seem to have lost our normal history lesson tonight, but having said that, these are good documents, but I also want to just thank Councillor Henry, who did a lot of work reviewing these documents, and she has raised a couple of minor issues which Councillor Adams is aware, so I just wanted to thank her for her diligence in finding those deliberate mistakes. Thank you.
Thank you. Unfortunately, Councillor Henry couldn't be here this evening, but I know she put a lot of hard work into the 2 appraisals and the review on behalf of her wards. So yes, absolutely. Let us acknowledge that. There are a few things that have been picked up in terms of areas that just need slight corrections, but I suggest to Councillor Adams that you can work with officers on a one-to-one and make sure that those are resolved. So to this item, there is one recommendation, bottom of page 5 to the top of the following page 6. Is that agreed, colleagues? Agreed. Thank you. Moving to item 12, which is the development of affordable homes at Nursery Hill, Shamley Green. Councillor Mrs King, would you like to take this item? Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed, Leader. This is a fairly straightforward report. We had planning permission for 5 new homes on this site granted in 2015. In January this year, we went out to tender, and for various reasons in the marketplace, there were absolutely no takers, which was a shame. So we went out to tender again in April, and this time we had 5 tenders. There is an exempt, part to this report, and I won't go into the exempt, but contractor 3, who's shown in the report, was selected via the usual procurement process. And I'd like to invite the executive, please, to approve the appointment of contractor number 3, obviously subject to the final sum being within the approved budget. Thank you.
Colleagues, any comments, or are you content with this? I'm presuming that you will have read the exempt part in detail as well, so we don't need to go into exempt. No? In that case, is the recommendation under recommendation 12 agreed? Agreed. Thank you. Moving to item 13, which is the affordable homes at Sheridan, Cranley. Thank you. Councillor Mrs King.
Thank you, Leader. On this one, planning permission was granted in January of this year, so we're a bit more up to date on this one, for 2 new affordable homes to meet local need. Following completion of pre-development work can start on this site earlier than we'd planned, which is actually for once good news. We always seem to be a bit behind ourselves, but not this time. and there is an indicative timetable shown on page 146. I'd like to invite the executive to approve the appointment, please, of a build contractor following the completion of the tender process, obviously subject to the contract sum being within the approved budget, to keep my colleague on my left happy, and the rescheduling of £60,000 of the budget, the overall budget, from 17-18 and bring it forward to this financial year to allow works to start. Thank you.
Thank you. How encouraging that we're actually ahead of time at the moment. No bad weather, no bones, nothing else. So let's just hope. Fingers crossed. No, on a yes. Well, anyway, no, really good news. This is a really positive story because we do desperately need those homes, and we need to ensure that we get them built. So, colleagues, to that item, there are two... Sorry, Councillor Bolton.
Thank you, Leader. I'm conscious that we're all nearly at the end of the agenda, but could I just ask a question about the map on page 148? Assuming that north is the top of the page and the site for building these houses is marked in red, what exactly is the empty space to the southwest of the site, which looks as though it could have a number of houses on?
Can I ask Mr. Roberts to
Leader,
come in, please? No, Mr. Roberts, please.
Can I suggest, just so I can be absolutely sure, that I give the councillor a written response?
Right. Thank you very much. In that case, if we can move back, Mr. Councillor Bolton, you'll receive a written response on that. Item 13, so there are two recommendations. Are those agreed?
Agreed.
Can we move to item 14, Executive Director's Actions? Thank you.
Thank you, Leader. Just one item to report. This was to advance the progress of the Farnham Neighbourhood Plan in readiness for examination. So it's progressing well with a one-day hearing on the 25th of November. Thank you, Leader.
Thank you. And can I also put on record to all the officers who've been involved in the neighbourhood plan at Waverley, thank you for all their hard work. It's really exciting to see the first of our neighbourhood plans actually coming through to sort of the examination stage. Can I also put on record my thanks to the communications team here who've worked so hard on this, and that's been great as well. They've dealt with all the sort of the consultation, and this was sort of their first time doing that, so that's been a big learning curve for them, and I know a lot of hard work has gone in behind the scenes on that as well. So my thanks to all the departments who've worked so hard and so closely to bring this about. As I say, it's been a lot of hard work in the making, but it's really good to see that the neighbourhood plans now, as well as our own local plan, are really starting to come to fruition, and hopefully this is the first of many. Thank you. So on that note, we have no other matters in terms of excluding the press or public, do we, this evening? Can I then thank you all for attending and close the meeting?